Hi, I'm Tim Johnston,
And I'm Kevin Tuerk.
and we'll be discussing the relationship between ENSO and the financial impact of Atlantic hurricanes. It is important to determine this relationship in order to help understand how climate change and ENSO will influence these Atlantic hurricanes, as well as their financial impact. In order to establish a link between the El Niño Southern Oscillation, otherwise known as ENSO, and the financial impact of hurricanes, we wanted to first find the relationship between ENSO and hurricane activity. First, here's a quick overview on ENSO and conditions favorable to hurricane formation. The El Niño Southern Oscillation is an index used to classify sea surface temperatures, or SSTs, in the tropical Pacific Ocean. The El Niño phase represents relatively warm SSTs, the La Niña phase represents relatively cool SSTs, and the neutral phase is when SSTs remain near the mean. The four primary conditions necessary for Atlantic hurricane formation are warm Atlantic SSTs, moist air, some initial atmospheric disturbance, and a lack of vertical wind shear. Since El Niño years are associated with increased vertical wind shear, we can hypothesize that La Niña years should see more Atlantic hurricane activity and El Niño years should see less. To further explore this idea, we looked at a 1984 study by William Gray and a 1998 study by Mark Bove. These studies took an observational and statistical approach to determining the relationship between ENSO and Atlantic hurricane activity, and the results support the hypothesis that La Niña years are more conducive to Atlantic hurricanes. Between 1900 and 1997, an average of 2.23 Atlantic hurricanes made U.S. landfall during La Niña years, and an average of only 1.04 made landfall during El Niño years. The study also found that Category 3 or stronger hurricanes are more than 4 times more likely to make landfall during La Niña years than during El Niño years. Based on these results, we can conclude that the La Niña phase leads to an increase in both the number and the intensity of U.S. landfalling hurricanes.
Now that we've discussed how ENSO phase affects hurricane activity, we can talk about the relationship between ENSO phase and the hurricane's financial impact. Using a study done by Pielka and Lancey in 1999, we deal with a data set from 1925 to 1979, with prices normalized to 1997 values in order to analyze the underlying climatic signals. Although the neutral phase has a higher mean annual loss than the La Niña phase, its large standard deviation suggests high variability in the damages occurred from these hurricanes. This table shows the probabilities for a hurricane during each ENSO phase to break a damage threshold. The probability for a hurricane to cause greater than $1 billion in damages is 77% in the La Niña phase, whereas the probability for a hurricane in the El Niño phase is only 32%. Overall, we see that the La Niña phase produces more damaging hurricanes than the other ENSO phases. Now that we have determined how ENSO phase affects hurricane activity and associated damages, we can look at how climate change will impact hurricane activity and therefore financial impact. As we know, the concentration of CO2 has nearly doubled since pre-industrial times, mainly due to anthropogenic forcings. The IPCC report shows that the global mean surface temperature will increase by as much as 4 degrees Celsius by 2100 at the current rate that we are putting CO2 into the atmosphere. This increase in global mean surface temperatures will also cause an increase in sea surface temperatures. This will lead to interannual variability in the Pacific being more strongly skewed, with strong cold events becoming more frequent. As La Niña becomes stronger and more frequent, we can expect to see an increase in La Niña hurricane intensity and frequency. The greater intensity of La Niña hurricanes will translate to a significant increase in economic losses.
In conclusion, we found the relationships between ENSO phase, Atlantic hurricane activity, and the annual financial impact of hurricanes. We were able to conclude that a La Niña year will lead to an increased number and intensity of hurricanes, and this in turn can be linked to a higher dollar value of damage being caused each hurricane season.